state.
That's the FDA, the EPA, that area of the government that never, the Federal Reserve, it never changes no matter who's in the White House. It's not recognized in the Constitution. It's neither fish nor fowl. They write their own regulations, like the FDA can regulate a mud puddle. They enforce their own regulations. They interpret their own regulations, and they punish people for violating their own regulations. They're really, as I said, alien to the Constitution, but they get bigger and bigger and bigger. They employ probably they employ, about 500,000 people. They're the permanent bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. that really runs the instrument of government, and they don't change no matter who's in power. Even when Donald Trump appointed a more rational-minded head of the EPA, they still came out with these crazy regulations preventing you from building on your own property. The FDA, you and I have railed against vaccines and mask mandates. The FDA is the ones that are responsible for all of that. The FDA under Donald Trump, the most anti-administrative state president in the modern era, still was saddled and burdened with all the laws that previous Congresses have written that gave all this authority to the administrative state. Wilson's idea was the people are too stupid to govern themselves. They need experts. So let's hire doctors in the FDA. Let's hire scientists in the EPA. Let's hire engineers in the Federal Trade Commission to figure out the best way to get goods from New York to California. All these experts will tell us how to live, and they won't have to run for office. They won't be subject to politics. It's a disaster. It's a constant bureaucracy that never changes. It's big government spending and growing and regulating more and more and more with every tick of the clock.
A constant bureaucracy that never changes, just gets bigger and bigger. So what are we going to do? How are we going to change this? Because we just
had... If Bobby Kennedy is elected president of the United States, one aspect of this administrative state is the CIA. I didn't even talk about the intelligence and law enforcement. The FBI and the CIA are examples of this. They don't change no matter who is the head of them. If Bobby Kennedy is elected president of the United States, there will be no money for the CIA and their budget. So after a year or so, because their budget is always a year behind, they'll go out of business. I don't know what he'll do with the FBI, but I'm sure he will curtail them significantly. He's the only one saying those things. Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis are both saying, although DeSantis has walked back on this because the big government Republicans jumped down his throat, we shouldn't be in the war in Ukraine. Bobby Kennedy, of course, takes the same view. Bobby Kennedy will pardon Julian Assange and, quote, build a statue for him in Washington, D.C. Not my words, Bobby's words. He is the last best hope for shrinking the government down to the size that the Constitution prescribes for it.
Well, as you know, I really believe that RFK Jr. will be the next president of the United States, minus a wild card, because you can never predict the wild cards that'll be played. And one of the wild cards are, when all else fails, as you know, I say, they take you to war. And this war in Ukraine, they just keep ramping it up and ramping it up. And now the baloney being spilled out by this guy who used to be a sitcom actor in Ukraine and played the piano with his penis. There he is over there, Zelensky. I'm not making this up. He's saying now that Russia's going to bomb the nuclear power plant that they're in control of. And that's making all the news. And week after week, we're seeing more and more articles coming out about the possibility of a nuclear exchange. If this happens, it's the end of life on Earth.
It will probably happen, if it happens, with the Ukrainians bombing their own nuclear facility so as to enrage NATO. Now, NATO's, Gerald, you're talking about something that could happen as we speak. Yeah. NATO is meeting on July 11th, that's next Tuesday, if he plans to enrage NATO, his people will attack that nuclear facility before July 11th. So there's time for the damage to be done and the rage to be generated. This could happen any hour now.
And there's
any hour.
Yep. And there's virtually no pushback in the media. You're not allowed to talk about it. And the stupidity, again, didn't you know that Russia bombed its own Nord Stream pipeline?
You're right. Russia wanted to stop selling natural gas to Northern Europe. So instead of turning it off, it destroyed the pipeline. I mean, this just doesn't make any sense at all. We all have seen Cy Hirsch's research, which the mainstream media rejects because he beat them to the punch.
Yep, that the United States was behind this.
And then
they blew up that dam and the hydroelectric plant, which the Russians were in control of. But of course, the Russians killed their own people and blew up their own plant that they were in charge of, according to Zelensky. And now Zelensky, and they keep repeating it in the media over and over and over, says that Russia's going to blow up the nuclear power plant that they're in control of. So they're going to kill more people. Oh, and of course, Russia wants to blow up the nuclear power plant because the wind doesn't blow toward Russia at all, or Crimea. No, it only stays in Ukraine. I mean, this is insanity, and there's no pushback about it. We are on the verge of nuclear destruction.
The only person who tells the truth, the only combatant, the only head of state who tells the truth in all of this, I never thought I'd say it, but I believe it in my heart, is Vladimir Putin. Zelensky cannot be believed. He will lie, cheat, deceive, and kill in order to drag NATO into this war. And it seems as though he's on the verge of a false flag, of an attack on this nuclear power plant, and then he will blame Putin.
So now going back to the election,
it would be insane for Putin to do that. And Putin is many things. He's not insane. He's a smart, patient guy.
So now looking at this, going back to the 2024 elections, as I say, when all else fails, they take it to war. And Biden has a perfect track record of being a warmonger all his life.
Yes. Well, it's his only hope for re-election. Is that he is a wartime president and the war is popular in the United States. Gerald, believe it or not, the war is popular in the United States until American boys come home in body bags. Then you'll see a radical.
No, you don't see. You're not allowed to show the body bags. You forgot?
I did forget.
Remember, they did that with the Iraq War.
Yes.
Well,
that's George W. and Dick Cheney.
Yep.
Under the First Amendment, the media can take pictures of whatever it wants, but you're not allowed on a military base when those coffins are coming out of the cargo planes. No cameras there.
Yep. So it's not like the Vietnam War where they showed all this, where they call these little clowns embedded reporters. You had to be an embedded reporter in order to go to the war front. Yeah, you're in bed with the clowns running the show. Embedded. And so what I'm saying is that the people have no idea what's going on, how dangerous this is, and how we are on the cusp of nuclear destruction.
Right. All because of the empire building, bellicose attitude in the United States State Department, which has been there since 1947, which was instigated by Harry Truman, who in 1963 condemned what the State Department and the CIA became. And by then, the elites wouldn't listen to him. He's just a withered old man who died a few years later.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of Truman at all.
No.
I think they dropped the atomic bombs. Yeah. Dropping the atomic bombs made him a mass murderer. But he did live to regret and to condemn what he started in 1947 with the CIA.
Yeah. You know, Judge, everybody listening here, please, hit your like button, subscribe, really spread the word. There's nobody, what Judge Napolitano's saying, that the information he has, the knowledge and the truth is, you can't find this anywhere else. And again, go to the judge's channel for more Judging Freedom. He has great interviews with great people as well. Judge, thanks so much for being here. And again, here we are on July 5th, and we talked about Independence Day, something that's long been lost. We've lost our independence. Well, we become, as I say it, our plantation workers on the global plantation of Slavelandia. So, Judge, see you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gerald. Always a pleasure no matter what we talk about. All the best.